Well, hello and welcome to my latest video. If you are a regular viewer of this channel, you may have seen that there is a specific playlist which is called Bicycle Maintenance with a Fairly Average Mechanic, the fairly average mechanic being me. There's quite a few useful videos in that series, but I thought there was another one that I ought to add to it, and that's what I'm going to do today. I'm in the garage again, or as I now call it, my home. And I'm not behind the table, funnily enough. So I know the lens can't see this, but there isn't a table down there. There is the floor, but you can't see the floor either. As Paul Simon memorably said, one man's floor is another man's ceiling. But that would only apply if I had a basement and I had a man or even somebody else in my basement. I don't have a basement, and therefore my floor is not another man's ceiling. And in fact, my ceiling is not another man's floor, because in my garage there is nothing above my ceiling except the roof. So that whole kind of analogy doesn't really arise. So what are we doing today in the latest in our series of bicycle maintenance with a fairly average mechanic? Well, we're looking at a wheel. First of all, this is a wheel. This is one of those round things that you put on your bicycle, and occasionally, or if you are like me about 10 times a month, you will get what's known as a puncture. And if you get a puncture, your tyre goes flat. You probably know this, and you have to pump it up. So what I thought I'd show you today is how to pump up a tyre. Now, you may be new to cycling. You may have just dredged a bicycle out of a canal, or you may be an experienced cyclist, perhaps an elderly gentleman, and you've forgotten how to pump up your tyre. So I thought it would be useful if I showed you what to do. So we have a tyre here, we have a wheel here, it's got a tyre on it. The tyre is not as flat as it could be, so we're going to make it a bit flat. You see that rather attractive hissing sound is the sound of the air escaping from the valve. It's not escaping from the puncture because I don't actually have a puncture on this. I didn't put a puncture in the tyre just to demonstrate this particular video. I've just released some air from the tyre so we can see how it operates. Now I have here a pump. This happens to be a Schrader Valve pump, which is a rather nice pump, and I did an unboxing of this pump. There is a link to the video not up there, and I'm going to show you how this works. Now, you don't have to use a Schrader Valve pump. That's the first thing to say. You can use any sort of pump, but I do recommend that you use a pump. You can try other items. If you're out cycling, perhaps you have a banana in your back pocket, you can try and pump up your tyre with a banana. You might have a flapjack, you might even have one of those inedible rice cakes, but they don't work so well. The best tool that you can use is what's known as a bicycle pump. And if you go to your local bike shop and you say to them, I'd like to buy a bicycle pump, please don't just ask for a pump. It does have to be a bicycle pump. You don't want a car pump because that's a slightly different thing and rather heavy and doesn't fit in your back pocket. But an ordinary bicycle pump is the thing that you use. Now this particular, I'm going to put the wheel down, and if I can remember how this, oh yes, this particular pump, you pull out this tube here, and on the tube is a connector, and that connector connects to your valve. Now, most of the, what do you call it, usual bike tyres you will come across have what's called a Presta Valve. But if you're riding a mountain bike, or sometimes on children's bikes, you'll have what's called a Schrader Valve. The Schrader Valve is the same as you'd get on a car tyre. A Presta Valve is not the same as you'd get on a car tyre. And if we look at this particular tyre, and we look at the valve here, if I press like, see when I press it, see, can you hear that hissing sound? Pressing it is making the air come out. So that releases the connector from the valve, or releases the air from the valve, and that's how it works. So there's our valve. It's on our inner tube, which is inside the tyre. I'm not going to show you that. That might be the subject of another video. And with this particular Schrader Valve pump, I'm going to do it this way so that you can see. Can you see it there? I put the connector onto the valve, and I move this lever here, which locks the connector onto the valve. Your pump may have a different system. It may be a screw-on system. They don't work quite so well. I often find if I use a screw-on system, you then unscrew the valve itself, which can be done because for some reason there are two screws on a valve. One which screws it into the rest of the fixing here and one that secures the valve, but they both screw the same way as they would do, and therefore you can unscrew one when you want to stay in screwed, and when you screw in one, you tighten up the other screw. So I've attached this connector to the valve with this locking mechanism here, and now I just operate the pump like this. Now let me just turn round so you can see that closely. So you can see that the action is I'm holding in my left hand, I'm holding the end of the pump, this end of the pump, and in my right hand I'm holding this end of the pump. Now you may be left-handed, in which case you may do it the other way round like that, or you may be in Australia, in which case you do it upside down. But I'm holding the pump at both ends, and now I push the pump in and out, and this action is known as pumping. All right, so I'm pumping up the tyre like this, and if it's working as it should do, then air is being forced into the tube, which is inside the tyre, from this pump action. Okay, so you can see this pump action. Now if I go faster, then I'll get more air into the tyre more quickly, but I'm also going to get more tired. So I'm going to pump it up gradually there like that. This is a good pump. It's quite an expensive pump, but it's a very effective pump, and it is important to use an effective pump. I don't recommend that you buy a £50 pump to put onto a bike that you've dredged out of a canal, but you could go to your bicycle shop. You can get pumps for about £10, something like that, £15 sometimes, and I'm sure Lidl or Aldi sell a pump that's really quite cheap. So there we are, we're pumping up the tyre. And when we've got it to the correct pressure, I may do a separate video about the importance of tyre pressures, but once we've got it up to the correct pressure, and let's assume that's there, I'm going to unlock this connector here. Can you see what I'm doing? And I just pull that off there, like that. I've done that. And then I tighten up, I screw in the valve here. Now, there is a new feature on YouTube. They've introduced quite a lot of new features because the rise in cycling, because it's got so popular now because of certain situations. But if you touch the screen just there, right in the center, it'll allow you to feel, or it'll allow you to do what I'm doing on the tyre. So it's a bit like, you know, when you have your tablet, your iPad, and you touch the iPad there and something happens on the screen. It's really quite magical. But now you can do that with a computer screen. You can do it with your phone. You can do it with your iPad. You just press like I'm pressing here, and you can feel what I feel, which is the relative how full of air the tyre is. And this one is not quite full of air yet, because I didn't pump it up as hard as I could have done, because I wanted to move on with this video, because some of you may be getting bored and be worrying about my living quarters or the state of my hair, or why I haven't changed my jacket for such a long time, but that's another matter. So bicycle maintenance with a fairly average mechanic, that is an important lesson. It's probably the first lesson. No, it's probably the second lesson. No, maybe the third lesson. The first lesson is getting on the bike. The second will be balancing on the bike, and the third lesson will be pumping up your tyres. Because if there is one thing that is guaranteed in this life, apart from death and taxes and a useless Conservative government, it is that you will get a puncture. And therefore, learning how to pump up your tyres is just as important as learning how to vote in the next election. So, hope you've enjoyed that video. Sorry for the little political interference there at the end. I didn't mean to do that. It just slipped out. It's one of the consequences of living in your own in a garage. So, hope you enjoyed that video, and tune in for more bicycle maintenance with a fairly average mechanic. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.